Hello, Business Little Fox. Hope you are doing good. Um, Thank you for all your comments and questions that I'm receiving here and there. So we'll just continue what we were doing yesterday, but this time we'll go a little bit deep into exporting from Excel. And as we are doing this, or even doing something else, if you have any questions around exporting to Excel, add that into the comment section. I religiously follow all the comments and I'll make sure that I cover that in future videos. So before I move forward, as I say every time, share your love, hit that subscribe button if you haven't. It gives us energy to keep doing whatever we are doing. So without wasting any time, let's get into a demo of what we are going to do today. Let me give you a brief overview of what we are planning today. So yesterday we saw how you can use a report object to utilize the Excel buffer table to export a data from one single entity. But what if you would like to bring data from multiple entities into multiple sheets? Let's say I would like some details from customer in a sheet, some details from vendors in a sheet, and some detail from items in one single sheet. And they all should download into one single Excel file so that the person who needs it can utilize that all different sheets to do his job. So that's what we are going to do today. If you're interested, stay up. Otherwise, I'll see you into the next video. So let's go ahead. Okay. So as I was saying, we'll pick some fields as we did yesterday from the customer table. And then in the other sheet, we'll pick some field from the vendor table. And in the same way, in the third sheet, we'll pick some field from the item table. So let me open my VS Code. As you all know the drill, the link to this repo will be available in the first pinned comment of this video. Okay, so let's go into export to Excel folder. And this time, rather than doing it with the report, let's do it with a code unit. So let's create a new code unit and we will call it as STH export to Excel or Excel multiple sheet. Okay. So now we have the code unit. So first we need to decide, or like in the report, as we were building yesterday, you have a data item. So you are sure that in the on after get record, the reports will automatically kind of traverse one by one based on the filters that you have applied and all. Whereas while working on a code unit, and let's do that, we'll create a procedure and we will name it as, okay, export customer data. Okay. So here what we'll do is we'll create a, let's think about it. Should we keep it local or global? Let's keep it local. It's easier that way. Record customer. So the first thing that we'll be doing in any Excel combination as you saw yesterday, and let's try to utilize the same methods that we have. So let's say create Excel header. And then once the header is created, we'll do a Excel body. Okay. And what else? Yeah. So to create Excel header, we'll also pass the reference, and for the Excel body, we'll also pass the reference. Now what we'll do is we'll get these methods as it is from here because we have already created them. So no point of wasting that time in here, right? Oh, that's needed Excel buffer. So let's just copy that directly. We have talked about it, why this is supposed to be temporary and all. If you haven't watched the first video, you can go back and check that. Now in all this, we need a reference to the customer entity. So we'll say customer, and we will also say customer here. Now think about it. As in, I don't want to create 5 different methods or 3 different methods for vendor entity and the item entity and all. So what I'll do is, instead of this, because I'm not applying any filters, I can pass the table number, right? So what I can do is I can say table number, which is of type integer. Okay. So what I'll do here is I'll say database and customer. Ah, see, I was running fast on it into it. Customer, and here also we'll change that. That'll give me the table number for the record that I'm referring to. But as soon as we do that, we lose the kind of connection to this entity at this moment, right? So then, because we are not creating any filters, if you're creating filters into the data item that you're passing, then you might want to send that detail, right? Then you'll have to pass that, the reference of that record. Or let's do that. Yeah, let me go back to what we were doing, and not to confuse you or myself, I'll just keep it as it is and utilize the same. Okay. So we have this in place already. Now to make sure that this repeats itself, the body section, what I'll have to do is I'll have to do a if customer dot find set, then repeat and until my customer is available. But in the same thing, I only want to create header if at least one customer is found. So what I'll do is I'll change it here and I'll call it within this. So because it is outside repeat, it will only call once and will create the header if there is a record, then and only then it'll do that. And then for each record that is found, it'll create the body. Okay. Now we'll be creating these multiple. So what I'll do is I'll change this to create customer header and create customer body. Just to keep it simple and to save time, what I'll do is I'll just copy these as it is and paste them here, and I'll change the customer entity here to be the vendor, and we'll pass it as vendor. We'll change it as vendor, and same here. Okay, so I'll call it as vendor. Okay, so we have done that. Now to do this, we'll again create a procedure like this, and this time we will mimic it as we were doing there with this. So we'll call it as like this, and I'll define it here, and then I'll say create vendor data, export vendor data, where vendor.find set, if it is vendor, then vendor and vendor, and then this method will be variable will be changed to vendor also. So on the similar lines, I have changed this, and before I change this, let me do that so that it automatically happens. Okay, vendor, and let's keep it customer for a while so that I can quickly do the rename. All right, so now we have the vendor header and vendor body in the same way we have for customer. Now let's do it one more time, and then we'll come to the actual logic, which is this time we'll do it for export item data, and I'll have to change this reference to item, and we'll change it to item, and once we have changed it, we'll just do a set here, 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 and here. Let me see, does it work or not that way? and I'm just trying something. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this number vendor item here. We'll change this to be item, and we'll also change this to be item, and again item. Okay. Now, have you heard about uh, overloads? And if you're watching videos, you have seen that a function can have multiple overload, and that is defined based on what are the parameters that are being called for this, right? So what I can do actually is I can rename this to be create Excel body and create Excel header. Now keep in mind that right now there is no function like this, so it'll support it. But what if I change this to all these places? Header, header, and then the body, body, and body. So what I've technically done, and I'll show it to you, I'll place them in the right sequence. Okay. Okay. So what I've done, if you notice, I have three methods with the same name: create Excel header, create Excel header, and create Excel header. But they differ in their definition. And I'm a little bit confused with the name of the word. If I'm not wrong, it is called polymorphism, or I don't know. But in Business Central, you can actually create multiple method if their signature is different. And that's how you see the multiple implementation or multiple overloading of the same method, right? In the same way, the Excel body is same, the function name, but their overloads are different. So what I need to do here is I'll have to change this to be create Excel header, and here also create Excel header. And based on the signature or the calling that you're making, you'll understand which function it need to call, because they all have the different data type or available. So now, as you see in case of when you are utilizing Microsoft methods, if you try to look at it, it'll show you that there are three different implementation: one for customer, one for vendor, and one for item. So that's how you can also write your methods with a different signature, so that you can utilize the same name and user gets an easier way to call the method, because they don't have to remember 9 different methods if, let's say, you are making it public. So header for customer is good, header for vendor is good, header for item have some problems because the fields are not same, right? So let's pick the description from here. Okay, and let's pick the field, let's pick one more field, any field, right? So let's say inventory posting group. Okay, now in the same way, is there a balance available? I doubt. So let me see, and we'll see that. So body is here for customer, vendor, everything looks good. Now coming back to item, what we have replaced name is with the description. So I'll change it here also in the body, and the next field that we replace is to item product or inventory posting group. And last but not least, we need one numeric field. Oh, what's best than inventory? So let's use the field inventory. Okay, and let's update the caption here to be inventory. Okay, so we have defined what methods will be called. We have defined the main methods, which will call these. And now, in summary, what we'll have to do is let's define the on run of this. So there should be a trigger on run, and on the begin end, we can eventually call these different methods, which is, and it knows it. Okay, so it called all these method, which exports the customer data, which then exports the vendor data, and which then exports the item data. Now, if you remember from our previous day discussions, and just to keep it simple, on these body sections, there is this balance field here, there's also a balance field here, and there is this inventory field, which are your flow fields, right? And to get these values to be populated in Excel, you will have to do a calc field. Or to put it very simply, I can actually do a item dot set auto calc field for inventory. In the same way, I can do here that vendor dot set auto calc field to be balance LCY. If I'm using that, let me just check. Yes. And in the same way, I'll just copy this and utilize it also on my customer entity. Now, if you don't know what's the difference between auto calc field and the calc field, let me know into the comment section. We'll do a brief video about it because there is a small change, but there's a huge difference in terms of performance of your code. All right. Now we have what we need from a perspective of generating the values into Excel. But now remember that when we are building these, what will happen is this will add some rows as it is doing here in the header, and then all these headers will add these new rows into it and columns into it. But we haven't decided where the sheets will break, because once the customer data is exported, we would like to create a new sheet. And then when the vendor data is exported, we would like to create a new sheet, and so on and so forth for all these three data items, so that our sheets are created. So let's create a method here called, and let's call it create Excel sheets or sheet. Okay. And I'll just pass nothing at this moment. Yeah, there's nothing to pass. It's just auto-suggested, whatever. So once the customer data is exported, I would like to call this. So let's create that procedure and let's think about it, what we need to do here. So if you remember, we utilized it a little bit in our first video, and not directly, but indirectly. So the Excel buffer table, Excel buffer, have methods to create a sheet, something around it. Let me search for it. Sheet. Okay. Read sheet, write sheet, and I'm pretty sure there should, oh, there's one select or add sheet. Okay. Let's look at it, what it needs. There's no definition of it, but you can pass the new sheet name. Okay. If the new sheet name is equal to blank, then it exits. So that's mandatory, it seems. And then if that name exists, it'll get that sheet because the function is select or add. So if the name that you're passing, it already exists in the Excel workbook, it'll just select that. If it does not exist, then it'll add that sheet into it. So that should do our work. Now we need the name, but I'll be calling this method twice. So I would like to pass this as a sheet name here. Okay, text to be 250. That's what it supports. I have looked at it. Oh, it can be unlimited, so that's okay. Let's pass the sheet name. Now when I call this method, I'll give it a sheet name. In case of item, I can give it item, and so on and so forth. And then once it is done, I can actually go ahead and write into this sheet. Okay, write sheet, yes. And then the sheet that I'm writing should have some parameter, and we would have used it. What is the report header, company name, and user ID? So let's the report header be the same. The company name becomes company name, and user ID becomes my user ID. So once the writing on the sheet is over, what we did is we move forward from there, right? And then at the end, we'll have to kind of save the book and all. But this method will be called multiple times. In this time, let's say it's called customer as the sheet name, and then I'll also call it after vendor, and we'll call it vendor. And in the next time, I'll call it, and we'll call it as item. So if everything goes well, it should generate these sheets, and we should be able to use that. But at the time when the new sheet will be added, I also need to, because I have written everything into my sheet, I need to clear everything that is in the temp buffer, temp Excel buffer. So what I'll do is I'll do a delete all, because this is already written into the sheet, and I also clear the new row. So whenever I say new row, it'll start from 1, right? Based on this, you'll be able to reset the pointer to the row number 1 with this command, and the delete one will delete everything which I have already written into the sheet. Sounds good? But now we're trying to do a select or add sheet. Now if you look at this code again, it is saying if that sheet is found in the book, workbook. If not found, then create or add the worksheet where? Into the workbook of your Excel. But where is our workbook? Is there something around book? Let's see. Create book. Oh, create book. There is a create book. Okay, which is tagged as on-prem. Let's see. Create. Let me search for book. I should be able to find it. Close book. Okay. Create and open. Okay. Close book. Oh, there is one which is not tagged as on-prem called create new book. And you also have to give a sheet name to this. Okay, so I should be creating the book first and then adding the sheets into it, obviously, because this is looking it into a book. So what I need to do is I need to do a create book, new book, and then I need to pass the sheet name. But now remember, this method is being called thrice, and I don't want to create the book thrice. I just want to create it once. So what I'll do is I'll also, let's do this. I'll also pass a new variable here, and we'll call is this a new book of type boolean. If the new book is set to true, that it is being called for the first time, then we'll create the new book. Otherwise, we will select or add sheet. Because this method, if you look in here, is also creating the sheet. Okay, that's why the sheet name is there. So it then creates a sheet here. So for the first time, when I'm calling this method, I'll set this to true and it'll create the new book. As many times as I want to call after this, and that's up to you, how many sheets you want, it'll automatically call this method, will just add the sheet. What you need to keep in mind, the sheet name should not be same as the previous one, otherwise it'll overwrite it. So let's change our callings here, and we will set it to be true in the first instance as we are talking about, and then going forward we'll set it to false. So what this will do, for the first time it'll create the book, and then going forward I'll just keep adding the sheets into it. So far so good, I guess. We have done what we wanted, and now what's remaining? Now we need to download that book that we have created, because that's the end goal, is to have a Excel book available for us, right? So let's go back to our yesterday object, and we'll just pick that method, create Excel book as it is, and we'll have to do some changes because we are dealing with the multiple sheets. So we'll do that. Let's understand what you're doing here. It says create new book, and it gives a name, which we have already done here to do a create new book. So there's nothing need to be done on this one. I can just comment this. I don't have to write the sheet because I have already written it. for all the different sheets that I'm adding. So the only thing that I have to do here is close the book, which I'm doing, and then set a finally name of my file, which is, let's say in this case, master data list. Once I've done that, I just need to open that sheet into Excel if everything goes well. So if everything goes well, I should be, when I run this, I cannot run it directly. I can just call this method at the end, and that should do the magic of generating the Excel file if everything written here is correct. When that happens, I'll be a happy person at this point. So let me also call these methods at the beginning, because that's as we also were doing into the report. So before it starts running, I'll also clear everything into the buffer if something is left over from the previous execution that you have done, or if somebody forgot to set it to temporary. Okay, so now we have the code available. We just need to plug it somewhere so that we can test it. Now to place it somewhere, let me see. Do I have a page extension somewhere? I think so. Let me see. Not on purchase order. Let me just have a look on my extension. Object designer. I know you can do it from other areas, like just being in the habit of this. So we have a customer card extension, so I can place it there, or customer list extension or vendor card. So let's put it on the customer list page that we already have. Okay. So I just need to call this code unit in an action on the page, and that should do all the magic that we want. Okay. Okay. All right. Not the base one. Okay. Let me just quickly check. Okay. Page, not page. Okay. Hyperlink. No. Generic grouping report. Sorry, I should have thought about it earlier, but okay. Now I have it here. I'll just add one new action into it. And the action will be called download master data. Okay. And then the way we do it, we'll just follow the trend here, which is written here. We have to find the all. We have to find an image to download master data. This defines it. And then here I'll call my code unit, which is, oh, where is that code unit? Okay, this one. So I'll just copy the name here and paste it here, and we'll call it SDH Excel multiple sheets. Okay. And then I'll just call the run here. That's where we have written everything. So once user clicks on this action, that invokes this code unit, which then does tries to generate an Excel file which have multiple sheets and all. So let's go back and try to publish this and see does it work or not. If it doesn't, we'll come back and we'll see what changes we'll have to make. And as we were talking about yesterday, I haven't tested this before recording this video, but I hope that it works. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure you guys will be with me while I'm trying to fix it. Okay. So the use case for these kind of report building is when your customer asks you to get different data set from different collections into one single Excel file. Okay, I've set that as run object, so that's why that was trying to run. But let's go into the customer card, I guess. That's where I've set it. Let me just check. Yes, on the customer list page. Somewhere here, it's kind of hidden, and I need to use a new one, new way of writing actions so that it kind of comes out. Okay, I'm looking for that. Should be somewhere here. Related customer, download master data. So once I click on this, it'll start downloading whatever the data that we have requested, and everything goes well. I should see 3 Excel sheets into this file, which came to my another window, but here it is. The first file lists down all, or the first sheet lists down all the fields that I wanted from my customer entry with the balance and everything. And then I have another sheet which lists down all my vendors that are coming from the vendor table. And then there is a third sheet which lists down all my items with their inventory for the use case that I wanted. Now, I'm not saying that the demo that I showed is what would be your use case. But what I'm trying to show you here is that based on the user requirement, for whatever purpose they need it, you can actually utilize the Excel buffer to also generate multiple sheets into the Excel file that is generated from Business Central. The only change or the only learning on this video, if you have watched the previous video, is how you create this method and keep adding sheets when you are doing that, and what changes you have to make to the create Excel book method. Now that's not it. You will see why we switched from the emailing playlist to these two videos that we did yesterday and today in tomorrow's video. So if you have learned something new, if you have any questions around whatever we talked about in this video, you know the drill. Go ahead and add a comment into this video and I'll go back and try to answer that or make a video about it. There are other best case scenarios also, like you can use query object to generate this data set, which may come from one single entity or multiple entities with different kind of joins that you can apply in the query object. And the beauty is that you can call your query object in the code to fetch the data back before writing it into the Excel. If that is something that you are interested in, let me know into the comments. And rest, you know the drill. If you like the content, hit the like button. If you think your fellow developers like me and others will learn something new from this video, then please do share this video with your colleagues. And as I said in the beginning, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel, and I'll come back sooner than later on the next video in this channel. So till then, have a great day and I'll see you soon.